discussed that. And does anyone have any questions, comments, additions, corrections to the minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, passes unanimously. So the first thing we want to discuss is Heather's going to talk about the transit development plan.
She's AWOL?
Is Heather here?
She's on her way. She's on her way.
Okay.
Hold on, sorry.
All right, that's all right. Hmm?
You've been very busy, okay.
Yeah.
You need it, right?
Yeah. That gives me a chance to get a bite of my muffin here.
Sorry, because Dan's like, oh, yeah, 5 minutes. Hi.
Morning, Heather.
Hi, how are you?
We don't have quite the crowd we had at the prior meeting, but.
I saw that. I was watching it.
Yeah.
Whit has asked to make a few comments too after you
Okay,
give your
fair enough.
amazing speech.
Okay, are we ready? Okay, so this is a presentation on the Transit Development Plan Annual Progress Report. So the FDOT requires PSTA and all transit agencies in Florida to submit a transit development plan. And then we do that every 5 years, and then annually a progress report on our accomplishments during the previous year. So it serves as our 10-year service vision. It includes, we like to say it's really just a mandate for good planning. It really just rolls up all the other things we're doing. It's not recreating the wheel. So it includes bus plan recommendations, our current CIP, our current budget. It includes an implementation plan that's based on PSTA's Path Forward strategic plan. It's also the foundation for transit elements of other plans. So our 10-year service vision gets included or incorporated into the MPO's long-range transportation plan, which is a 25-year plan. It also gets incorporated into TBARTA's master plan so that we have consistency amongst all the different agency plans. It also it serves as the basis for our priority projects, so our legislative priorities, and also the priorities we transmit to the MPO, which allows us to be eligible for different sources of funding. So some of the accomplishments over the past year that are included in this plan include our expansion of our innovative programs. So we've, for instance, started adding a lot more people onto our Mobility on Demand project, which is same-day paratransit. So we're now serving hundreds of people through that project. We improved our Direct Connect program and expanded from 7 zones to 24 locations. We also were recognized this past, a few months ago actually, by the American Public Transit Association for our strides in sustainability. And so some of that's in like our electric bus purchases, our hybrid bus purchases. We've done some projects here at the facility, improving energy use like LED lighting, improved HVAC system. We've also documented in this plan a number of our successful special event partnerships. We continue to have really great partnerships with Clearwater on spring break. This year we partnered with them to build a new transit center at the marina to improve the wait experience for people returning to the park and ride lot. We had another great year at Pride, and we expanded to a second lot, a park and ride lot at the Rays Stadium. Hopefully next year they'll have an away game, just like they did this year, so we can do that again because it was really successful. We did implement some of the recommendations out of the community bus plan. As many of you know, we only did a few of the improvements. Originally, the plan was to reallocate resources, but then due to budget considerations, we made a few improvements and then really didn't reallocate to improve the core routes. We can't do many of these things without grant funding, so we're really proud to have received all of these grants, most of them discretionary, over the last couple of years. So we've received grants to buy more electric buses, to do our Mobility on Demand program, and then also to improve routes like the Looper. So we also document in the plan our progress towards our priority projects, so kind of our legislative priorities and other high priority projects. The BRT project is at 60% design now and continues to move forward, so that's doing really well. We continue to move forward on our regional fare box project and the smart cards and the mobile pay. We developed a fare structure and then are just, watching that project and moving it along. We've been replacing buses. Was on our priority list for a long time to sustainably replace buses every year. We've also improved some of our services. We put an overlay, a limited stop overlay on the 52, so we call it the 52LX, and that's during peak hour. Route 59, we improved to every 15 minutes, which is a big improvement. I mentioned the Clearwater Beach service, and then we're also continue to work with DOT on a bus on shoulder project to allow the 100X to run on the shoulders when congestion gets below 35 miles per hour. Some of the priority projects that we have in our implementation plan that we would like to continue to make advancements on are our expansion of evening and weekend service, improved frequencies, more express routes to the airport, one from Clearwater Beach, one from St. Pete. And then we'd like to start to prepare other corridors for bus rapid transit. So some of our high-performing corridors like 4th Street, 34th Street, East Bay, and Alt 19. We also plan to continue enhancing our innovative programs, and then we're working with a number of agencies, and we've submitted a grant to try to do an integrated transit smartphone app where you can do your fare payment and your trip planning all within the same app. And then we're working also on autonomous vehicle pilot projects, one in St. Pete and one in Dunedin. So we'd like to continue to advance those. These are just a listing of all of basically what I just said, all the improvements we would hope to make. They have to be documented here in order to receive any funding that may come our way. And then this year, we updated our vision plan. So since we did a new community bus plan, and then there were some changes to our underlying local network, and then we've also updated it to reflect things like autonomous vehicle circulators rather than just regular bus circulators, and then transit center improvements we'd like to make. So all of these, this vision plan would be incorporated, and I know Whit wanted to make a few comments, into the long-range transportation plan. All of this would require a lot more resources, and so there's a conversation at the county to kind of get started on this and to do a few priority corridors, but we just wanted to reflect our long-term vision in this plan as well. And then the schedule for this, I'm presenting to the MPO, citizens and technical committees. We presented to the track last night. They had a few good questions. And then it'll go to the board next week for approval and then submit to the DOT on September 1. So this is an action item, and we would request that you recommend approval of this annual progress report to the transit development plan to the board.
Questions?
And then
Our chair just got here. Any questions? Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I know that, did you want Whit to make a few comments before we approve anything?
However y'all want to do it. Well, thanks for the opportunity to say a few words about this. We've been working very closely with PSTA staff for a year or so on this, and can you go back to the vision map for just a minute? And I like what I see in there, but our staff has some concerns about this, and I just wanted to highlight a couple things. One is I have some issues about calling it a 2045 vision plan, because really that's the MPO's responsibility of putting a vision for 2045. That's our long-range plan, and we have worked together to create an Advantage Pinellas brand that's more than just a brand. It's really an aligned strategy. And I don't think there's a lot of fundamental differences here in what we're showing in our needs plan for 2045, but maybe we call this an optimal network or something like that, because I think it could be confusing to have two visions out there, and that's exactly what we're trying to prevent happening, and to have one unified vision where really we set the foundation, we set the framework in the long-range plan, and then PSTA has a 5 and 10-year horizon for carrying out that vision. The other couple things I'll note on here, I think if it's a vision, you wouldn't have the words proposed on here. I mean, you just say, this is what we want to show. And we're showing a connection on US 19 up into Pasco County. And I think from a regional perspective, if Pasco County wants to come to the table with some dollars, then we ought to kind of look at that. And so I would try to extend that line up in there. And I think we ought to work on common language in our maps. It's fine if it's an optimal network and it's showing a more finer grain detail than our maps show, but I just want to be as consistent as possible in the terminology because it's so easy to confuse people. And the last thing I want is for somebody to say, well, there's PSTA plan out here and there's the MPO plan out here. So that's really my main comment. And then I just, the other point is that I think there needs to be a foundation that's with the long-range vision, and then this is really updated a lot more frequently and provides more of an operational and sort of aspect to developing the plan. And we recognize there's a lot more needs out there than what we're currently talking about with the county in terms of a potential funding strategy for these investment corridors, but I'm going around and speaking to our legislative delegation, to our cities with Barry Burton and others, and there is a lot of support for this investment strategy. In fact, I just met with the two most conservative members of our delegation, and they were completely on board with the vision of investing in transit, workforce development, and housing in these corridors. And I think that's a tremendous opportunity for us to reinforce that. So I think this is great work. I just want to show and reinforce that alignment a little bit more, and maybe retitle that map.
Yeah, we can, easily.
Okay, Madam Chair, you can take
So thank you, and thank you as well, Heather. I don't necessarily want to get into like a word choice sort of debate here, but since you brought it up, I agree. But I don't like optimal network either, because it implies that it is optimal, like that there is no change or whatnot, and then when you make a change later, then people say, well, I thought it was optimal, why did you make a change to that? So I don't know if like an aligned transit plan, you use that word several times in describing it, would allow people to be able to understand what this is, it's aligned. And I also definitely agree with using more consistent terminology to refer to the same things. That's a struggle anytime you communicate. In trying to make sure everyone's talking about the same thing in the same way.
Yeah. And we've been meeting a lot of staff, and we can continue to kind of refine that language and make sure we're using the same words.
So back on the summary, where it says provides a foundation for transit elements of other plans, and then it says MPO's long range, which is 25 years, and T-BARTA's, would it be better to say provides, it seems like those are the foundation, maybe provides elements for support of, of other plans. Instead of the foundation, I'm just saying if we're
Right,
talking
right.
about words.
Well, I mean, I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as you guys are. Isn't the TDP supposed to be the transit element that feeds into the long range, like, and the T-BARTA plan?
Yes.
Aren't they above?
You have different year
Yes.
horizons, though.
Correct.
So you have a 10-year vision required by state statute. We have a 25-year vision required by federal statutes. This has been a big issue across the state of Florida, so we're not unique here.
Okay.
But the TDP law that was created back in 1990, and I did the first TDP in the state of Florida for PSTA, kind of started us down this path of, because the CDO plans back then weren't very visionary. And they also didn't do a very good job of incorporating transit into them. And in fact, the Palm Beach MPO years ago adopted the TDP as the transit element of the long-range plan. And it was a 10-year plan, and it was physically, it was a mess. So this has been a big issue statewide, and we're just trying to be a leader in the state in aligning our different plans and modal agencies so that we're speaking with one voice and we're communicating effectively. And I think that's, and my comments here are quibbles. They're not big beefs, so I don't want to elevate that, but I do think that this is an important issue that I've been dealing with for 5 or 10 years before I got here.
Yeah, my question really has to do with the timing on the implementation part of this. I'd like if we could, to figure out, I mean, we have priorities that we all want, but I'd like to have some idea when things are gonna happen. I mean, 2045 is a couple of weeks from now, so we really need to talk about what are we doing today, what are we going to do in the next few years, and so on, so we can incrementalize a little bit the stages that we're gonna go through over this implementation process. I don't know exactly how we do that, because if you hold somebody to a certain date and it doesn't happen, then it gets, problematic. But I'd like to see how we're going to implement and in what stages and which way we handle that.
So my suggestion, just a thought, and I don't want to dominate the meeting, is that every year we adopt annual priorities for state and federal funding. For the first time about 2 or 3 years ago, we started putting transit projects on our priority list. That never was done before. And the TDP is updated every year. There's a major update every 3 years, but it's updated every year. Our long-range plan is every 5 years we update that thing. So it's meant to be kind of a standing guiding document. I would recommend that we have the long-range plan clarify the vision with input from PSTA. And then every year, as you look at your TDP, what can we advance? What can we put on the priority list? How do we move those projects forward and have sort of a 5-year work program of working that vision? And we'll do our part on land use. We'll do our part on multimodal connections into these transit services. And we'll work on development review and all those kinds of things together. But that's really kind of how that partnership comes together. So PSTA is the shorter term strategy with the TDP. And the MPO long-range plan is really more of the 10 to 15 year, it's really years 6 through 10, which is what's going to move into the next 5-year work program. So it's a little bifurcated just by state statute, and we're just trying to break down those bifurcations as best we can. Does that help? Does that clarify things?
So, also, we are due to submit a major update. It's actually every 5 years, but next year is the next time we're supposed to submit a major update. We were actually going to advance that to this year, but now there's this funding conversation, and so really a lot wouldn't change if we were to do that this year. So we're going to stick with our normal schedule, do it next year. In terms of implementation plan, I think the challenge is that a lot of it comes down to funding. And so we rely a lot on grant funding to improve some of these like innovative programs and those kind of things. And so the TIA Express from Clearwater Beach, for instance, has been on the priority list for many, many, many years. And we haven't had the funding, so it's hard to put a date to that. And so that's really where our challenge comes in. And I think, the funding conversation with the county, the 3 priority corridors, that's a start. And, maybe that's where we start with an implementation plan, is say, in so many years, we expect to do these 3 corridors, something of that nature. But I think hopefully by next year, we'll have some more answers for that. So right now, pretty much what we do on our implementation plan is put a laundry list of all the things we'd like to do. And then it gives us the opportunity to apply for funding if it becomes available. So, yeah.
Okay. What you mentioned, the Pasco partnership, and there is a park and ride there now, and PCPT does come down to, do you know the frequency?
I don't offhand. You might know the frequency of the PCP.
I think theirs is hourly.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it meets up at Tarpon and
Yeah,
Dewey.
the Tarpon Park and Ride.
Yeah,
with the
correct.
mall there.
Yeah, they have a grant for an intermodal center in Newport Richey that they've not broken ground on. And I met with their economic development director and transportation director about 3 weeks ago, just to show them the work that we had done in partnership with PSTA on the express bus
Right.
plan for US 19. And they liked it, they were intrigued by it, they sent a ton of workers down to our county. And they were gonna do their own due diligence on their side. They've got a funding challenge up there. So that's kind of where that stands. I'm waiting for Pasco County to come back and say, yeah, we're in, and we would love to go forward with you. And
Well, I believe a lot of folks have medical needs, and they come down to Pinellas
They do.
for them, yeah.
Yep, that's a good transit corridor in their county,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
there's a lot of lower income folks up there who
Absolutely.
need transportation.
Thank you.
And I will say, I don't think that corridor rises higher than some others, You know, and the North US 19 corridor is not as productive for PSTA as
Right,
other,
understood.
other routes in the system.
Any other questions? We need a-
I'll move, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Oh,
Well,
yes.
yeah, this is, okay, so I'm looking at this, is the intermodal center, is that part of a priority project, or is?
It's in
The
there.
Clearwater Intermodal Center, yes, is one of our priority projects.
Okay,
And we kind of are working even right now on some preliminary design through our project management office.
It's
All right. Just didn't
on
see it on
page
that.
10 in the small type. It's
Yeah, and it's on the vision map
Did I
as
miss
well,
it?
yeah. Yeah, and there's the Clearwater Intermodal Center, a Gateway Intermodal Center, and then we'd like to make improvements at some point to Grand Central, so that's
Okay.
shown as well.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
So looking at the plan, there are strategy 1, strategy 2, are those all being implemented at the same time? Or are all strategy 1s, I'm trying to figure out how this is.
The strategy section relates back to our Path Forward strategic plan. So I don't know if you recall that, it's the triangle thing. And, oh, it's in there, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have the document in front of
That's
me. So each of those kind of boxes that were in there form the kind of foundation for our goals and strategies. So there are all things we're working on kind of simultaneously, and we implemented this past, well, I guess we fully implemented this past year a new scorecard. You all know the scorecard. The scorecard, and so the scorecard speaks to a lot of those strategies and goals and our progress towards those.
Okay, so I see it now, it's a little small when I didn't zoom in.
Yeah,
So the,
sorry.
those, each one of those points are just pulled out from that triangle?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, and then, like I said, the scorecard helps us track our progress towards those things.
understood, thank you.
And the bottom, the one at the bottom that's, I think the customer-oriented,
It's the foundation.
that's like the foundation. That's like we have to get that done correctly first before we can get all the way to the top. So we would like to move all the way to the top, but we want to make sure, we're kind of working from the bottom up and shoring up all of those areas first.
So, thank you. I also noticed that there's the autonomous vehicle testing as part of our ongoing. What is the status of that? It's been ongoing for a year. In setting up the autonomous vehicle testing CP.
Originally, the plan was to do just a 3-month pilot just in St. Petersburg of an autonomous vehicle shuttle along the water there, using our own funds, our own reserve funds, which were highly debated at the last committee meeting, in lieu of buying trolleys, I guess. But we ran into there was a whole federal hold on tests that delayed that. And then the federal DOT came out with a grant funding opportunity that we have an application for to actually, I think, do 3, potentially as many as 3 4-month pilots. If we hit the jackpot and are selected by the federal government to be awarded funding, we would implement 3 shuttle autonomous vehicle pilot programs for 4 months each, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and Dunedin. And we're still waiting to hear from the feds. And if we don't get that, then we will still go forward with just the St. Petersburg one, using our own funds as a pilot. And we believe there's been some reprieve, but not full reprieve of the federal hang up on the NHTSA waiver. There's been some progress on that.
But then it also has to be timed with the pier construction and the Grand Prix. So it's a balance of.
I understand we got stuff going on.
Yeah.
You're in a busy place.
Yeah, so thank you for
That's
that.
next.
Really, it's not really part of our future planning, but in your presentation, you had general accomplishments and listed some of the things that we've been able to tick off this year. Is there anything that comes to mind that was not an accomplishment, that we fell a little short on, or that missed the mark?
Well, I think, maybe the Flamingo project's just been delayed, the Fair Card project, but that's somewhat out of our hands. We're working with Enid and Bite Mark to, advance that project, but there's I don't even know the full status of that. And then just that funding for the Clearwater Beach, I mean, I think that's been on our priority list for a really long time, and to have the express bus.
If you're referring to the board adopted priorities that are shown on the scorecard, Tricia's gonna show you, next month, we just got 101 ratings, so I would say no.
Well, I figured you would
As
say
of
no.
right now, but Heather is revealing some
I just think
delayed
it's-
projects.
I just think it's always important when we're looking at what we did accomplish, which is absolutely true, that we also need to acknowledge things that maybe didn't quite get across the finish line the way it was anticipated as well. So
Yes.
we're being honest with ourselves.
And the document, the TDP document does reflect that. It reflects anything that was different from our original plan that may have been delayed or fell off, and also new things that have been added since we never envisioned doing all these programs with Uber and Lyft when we did the major update 5 years ago. So, you know, it adds all those things as well.
And that's in the draft version.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cassandra has a comment over there.
I think we need to be real clear about what this document is and what it doesn't, right? The TDP is mandating good planning through the state, right? With right that we have been trying to be better integrated into the long-range transportation plan. But this is stuff that we would be doing anyway. The way that it's put together and the way that we have to talk about our projects here is so that we can be eligible for state funding. And it is a 10-year vision, and as Heather mentioned, things come up, right? We do a progress report so that we can add things, we can take things away that maybe fell off the screen as priorities for the board or the community. It is different than the LRTP, right? But it is a check-in point for us with the state. So it's not the end-all be-all, and it's not supposed to be the end-all be-all for us as an agency or us as a community.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve it? And we'll start it.
With the recommended changes, or just as it is?
I will change the vision map. I will work with MPO staff to ensure consistency in the
Okay.
maps.
With that assurance, then I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and you understand what changes you need? to
Yes, I
make?
do.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
There you go. Thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank you, Heather.
Yeah. Yeah.
Future
This is
welcome
exciting
subjects.
stuff, you know, we got a lot going on, and just like to
Yeah.
implement this stuff, you know, get it going.
Us too.
Future future subject, of course, this, the planning committee is the committee that is responsible for reviewing the FY 2020 budget before recommending it to the PSTA board, so that'll be the next, in September, we'll be going over that.
Okay.
We'll be right in the middle of our hearings on the two hearings on the budget, on the military at least. And so you'll see that first. One of the issue, obviously, lots of questions come up with the finance committee that are related to our forecasted budget, so we might, I don't know, we might have to do one of those combo, 9:30 or 9:45 kind of presentations to keep those who are on the finance committee engaged.
Say that again. What? About?
Combo.
Combo what?
Big meeting.
Oh, okay, and started earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
We have three members of that are on both committees, so it doesn't make much sense. And I don't think those usually go over well when we present the same thing twice in a row. So rather than, at times in the past, we have tried to have a joint period of time, I guess around maybe 10-15 or so in the morning, where both committees are here to hear the same presentation. And I was thinking maybe we should do that with the budget, just because there's.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Commissioner Eggers is interested in some certain things.
Great. Okay, so 10:15 next time? Is that, you're talking
Stay
about
tuned.
September's meeting?
I think the planning committee is not on its normal day, is that right?
Yeah.
Rachel?
No, I thought it was October that it's on a Friday.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's October. Yeah, it's on its regular time, September 18th, Wednesday.
Oh, 18.
Maybe 10%.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? See you,
10:15.
whenever our meeting.
Yeah, he's,
On the
this
18th.
guy.
On the 18th, thank you.
Well, no, we end up-
That's why I don't want my college.
She's gonna be a-
How's it going?
Takes a lot of time.
You know, Bree? Yeah, so, Rick,
Angry Bird pencil, where do you get that from? Well, I didn't bring a pen, so I looked in my car.
I know,
There was an Angry Bird pencil.
Yeah. Same thing, this is what I used to write down.
I used to have a pen that was attached to this whole thing, with a clip through. Every time I go to think of replacing it, I do something else.
You hang on to that, you might need it again.
Oh, it's going back now, it's partially out.
Does,
With car work. Yeah.